As temperatures reached over 100 degrees at his outdoor rally in Las Vegas, former President Trump told the crowd that he was, quote, up here sweating like a dog, and he was immediately shot by Kristi Noem.
They say they love shooting dogs and unarmed women who might or might not be trespassing. When it comes to their own rioters and protesters destroying public property, well, that's fine. Just like Nancy Pelosi. You see the Nancy Pelosi revelation. Had it on my Newsmax show last night. New video has emerged after more than 3 years of Nancy Pelosi in an armored limousine with strong men, masculine men with guns protecting her in an armored vehicle. While she complains, why wasn't the National Guard? It's on January 6th. Why isn't the National Guard here? And it turns out that the answer is easy. It's because you vetoed the request for a National Guard. But when you're a Democrat, that's not really a problem for you because the news media then attacks anybody that raises an eyebrow because it's good to be a Democrat. I'll tell you what, and the daughter of Nancy Pelosi, Alexandra Pelosi, who poses as a filmmaker, got a multi-million-dollar contract with HBO to edit out anything that might be detrimental to the Democrat Party because HBO, Time Warner, the whole, megacorp, propaganda arm of the Democrat Party of the left, and they, you scratch my back, and I don't want to tell you what they do in return. It might be impolite. Extraordinary times we're in. So we've got the Nancy Pelosi and crazy, and well, do you hear the tough question she gets at MSDNC? Pelosi went on MSDNC last night after the video popped, and to say, oh, this is nothing. The Republicans are such toadies. And then they looted a 7-Eleven on the way home because that's what they do. Amazing stuff. Also, the left-wing numbers cruncher, political numbers cruncher, Nate Silver of 538, that's what he calls his organization. Nate Silver floats the idea of Biden dropping out as president, right, as his approval rating sinks to yet another new all-time low. And the left-wing numbers cruncher, media loves him because he's a Democrat and he does the work of the Democrats, and so does almost everyone in the news media. Amazing stuff. So he floats the idea, Nate Silver does, of Biden dropping out. Haven't I been, maybe as Michael Piercy texted me this morning, I think he's about a year and a half behind you on this, and I think he is about a year and a half behind me on this. It's true, but as the poll numbers sink to an all-time low, and he's got problems in key swing states and with key demographics, usually race-based because they are the party of lynching people from trees. Got to keep that in mind. And the party of Jim Crow. But yeah, Nate Silver says Biden needs to consider stepping aside at long last. Long last. And CBS News poll finds that more than half of people that say they support Joseph Robinette Biden and want to vote for him, more than half say that the main reason they're backing Joe Biden is just to oppose Trump. It's the key is hatred. With Democrats, everything is about hatred. It's about hating the guy next to you and anybody who does better than you, anybody who looks better than you, anybody who has better hair than you, better shoes than you, a better car than you. Just hate everybody. Because that's what they do. They're the left. They're resentful. And then they steal everything and kill everybody if history is our guide. And it is amazing stuff. Also, a little bit of news. I talked about it, and now it's being talked about a little more broadly. Dr. Jill Biden, who's not a doctor at all. If she were, she'd have her husband in assisted care living. But she's not a doctor. She's just a mooch of some kind. And power drunk with being first lady. But the trip that she took aboard a U.S. Air Force 757, like an Air Force Two kind of airplane, and she took it home from France, from Normandy, France, to sit in on the courtroom on her stepson, Hunter Biden, the crackhead stripper, knocker-upper, Russian hooker dater, who's one of the most brilliant artists of the 21st century and most highly paid, most highly compensated artists of the 21st century. It's good to be a Democrat. But it turns out that she took the 757 here, went to see Hunter Biden in court, then flew back to France because had dinner with the French president, and it cost us $345,000. We, the American taxpayers, cost her $345,000 to go back and forth so that she could have dinner while she could sit in on Crackhead's court trial, where I suspect, I mean, what do you think's going to happen there? I suspect that this Delaware jury is going to find a way to make sure that Hunter will be okay. I think Hunter is going to be okay. Alan Dershowitz caught up to me on this one, too. We were talking about this yesterday at Newsmax and how really the best thing for President Trump right now would be for the Democrats to show their hand, to reveal themselves by just finding Hunter Biden not guilty on all charges, just to demonstrate once again in real time how corrupt the Democrat Party is, like a third world banana boat stealing, hijacking gang of third worlders, and just find him not guilty. You know that, and Joe Biden lied the other day that he wouldn't pardon him, that he'd accept the outcome of the trial no matter what, and that he wouldn't pardon him. But he lies with great ease and alacrity. So pay no attention to what Joe Biden said. But and the jury is convening again, even as we speak, in Delaware. They're considering the charges. I'd like them to just chop, snap it up, and move this along. Let's find him not guilty and walk out of there laughing and high-fiving while we're on the air. I think that'd be very helpful. Just do it while you're a bunch of Democrat crooks. You know what you're going to do. It's a crooked trial. It's like some kind of, old 1960s movie about a redneck sheriff in a redneck town. That's what's going on in Wilmington, Delaware. But the redneck sheriff is the president of the United States in this version of the old story. I just want to see Hunter Biden found not guilty. Chop, chop. Let's move it along. Let's reveal to everyone so that it's undeniable what the Democrat Party is today. You get the lynch mob in New York, 34 counts, 34 guilties. Not one not guilty, not one hung jury on one count. No, all guilty and they chopped that along, didn't they? Like it was like a Chinese court and just moved that along. Amazing. So I just want to see, and it could happen while we're on the air. They might just come back and say, come on, we're just filthy, and we're going to find him not guilty of everything. I think that'd be best. Wonderful stuff. Talked about this the other day, too, and there's an update. The ex-intelligence officials, the Felonious 51. The Felonious 51 that signed on to that information operation that our own intelligence community ran against the American people, tampering in our election, corrupting our presidential election in 2020. Penitentiary face Brennan and that whole commie cabal that he runs with. And the headline is, ex-intel officials don't regret suggesting laptop was Russian disinformation. Well, when you're a liar, you got to be a liar all the way. It's like being a jet, When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day. And when you're a lion Sacagawea, like penitentiary-faced John Brennan, the Communist Party voter, penitentiary-faced Brennan, then you lie all the way and you corrupt the American election because it's revenge for the CIA tampering in elections in beephole countries, when the commies were taken over and everything. But turns out none of them regret, oh, no, I'm perfectly happy that I got away with this presidential election corrupting falsehood that we pulled on the American people. Why would that be an issue? Just amazing stuff, I'm telling you. Also, President Trump the other day in Las Vegas, Nevada, big speech over the weekend, he said, I believe that one was Sunday, and he said that he will work with Congress to do away with taxing employees on the tips that they earn. If you're a waiter or in Vegas, at a casino, you might work on the roulette table or the blackjack and you get tips, and that's how you make a lot of your money. And the Democrats are like, hey, we get a piece of that. We need to wet our beak with a piece of your take because they have the mentality of the Corleone family. But not Vito Corleone, more like Sonny Corleone. And a lot of Fredo Corleone. They got a lot of Fredo Corleone, don't they? Like Chris Cuomo, not just Chris Cuomo, but a lot of that going on too. And so we got that. But in Vegas, the local CBS news station in Las Vegas went out and they talked to people in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they asked, hey, President Trump's talking about doing away with federal income taxes on tips. And the majority of employees they spoke to said, I would switch my vote from Biden to Trump if he promises to take taxes away from my tips. How do you tax tips anyway? You have to, I guess, declare all your tips, and you have to be specific and truthful, and then the federal government gets a piece of it because they've got all the guns, and they'll put the gun to your head and say, well, I get to take that. Also, I want to update you on this crazy story that a parole officer was murdered in Maryland a week ago, and the psychopath that they arrested, wait till you hear this guy's story. The killer, who was just, why was this guy on the loose? He was in prison until not too long ago. And wait till you hear who this guy is, this murderer. And this is Democrat world, where all the murderers are in your children's bedrooms and in the front seat of your car crashing into the U.S. Attorney's office and killing your grandmother and then not being charged because Democrats are running the show. There is a mental illness loose in America, and its name is the Democrat Party. But I've got an update for you on that story because it's completely nuts. And AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the headline is from Fox News, AOC slammed for saying false accusations of anti-Semitism are wielded against people of color, against POC, because, and WOC, women of color. And that's what AOC is out there saying, that if you're out there saying kill all the Jews and you're a black woman and someone points it out, then that's racist and it's sexist, because you notice what people said out loud, just like Nancy Pelosi. Amazing times, just extraordinary. And the left here, Gaza civilian killings during Israel's freeing of hostages could be war crimes, UN says. It's time we hit the UN with cruise missiles and empty that building out, convert it to condos, move the UN to Burkina Faso. Honestly, their headquarters should be in Ouagadougou. And maybe Ulaanbaatar, but I prefer Ouagadougou when it comes to the UN headquarters, my favorite world capital, Ouagadougou. And they should move to Ouagadougou and have really a one-story building because they don't have construction standards or anything like that. But the UN says that rescuing your hostages being held by Hamas, they don't say Hamas could be guilty of war crimes for holding hostages, torturing them, killing them, raping them, any of that stuff. No, they say Israel is perhaps guilty of war crimes because they rescued hostages, and when the savages fought back, the brave young representatives of civilization in the IDF shot back and killed the bad guys. And now the bad guys at the UN, and the UN is run by the bad guys at the UN say Israel is the problem here, trying to rescue their hostages and all of that. Just wild. I'm telling you. Also, cops hunting two migrants, that's illegal aliens, accused of brutally beating and mugging Times Square tourists outside 4-star hotel. I don't know how many stars the hotel has is important enough to be in the headline, but okay. A tourist from Indiana beaten to a pulp by illegal aliens who are staying naturally on the taxpayer dime in a public place. Also, John Fetterman, and he's got a wife, amazingly. The generosity of women will never cease to amaze me. John Fetterman and his wife, Giselle, is that like an African antelope? Giselle involved, or maybe that's Epstein Island, didn't she manage Epstein Island? Involved in a car crash in Maryland, and that's bad. Of course, Fetterman is coming to his senses here and there. Something say he's getting better. He's recovering from the stroke. That means he's starting to sound more and more like a Republican. Black Lives Matter. Hey, where did all the money go for Black Lives Matter? You'll never guess. Got an update on that. And here's one you got to look out for. Man coughed and sneezed at the same time during breakfast at a diner. Then his colon fell out. They love their colons, but sometimes they fall out. And an anniversary of Islamism in the United States is tomorrow. Do you know what it is? We're at 888-630-9625. All right, we are back, and happy Tuesday once again. A lot of crazy. I'm going to share as much. Also, did you see the tranny at the White House last night? And George Floyd's brother, George St. Floyd of fentanyl, George Floyd's brother, I don't know if he was passing counterfeit 20s or what, but he was at the White House with the Bidens last night, along with a full-grown man with a beard dressed in a sparkly, spangly, full-length gown and high heels because the Democrat Party is very unwell. Let's go to a telephone call. Let's go to Matthew, calling from Johns Island, South Carolina. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Sorry, I just sneezed and coughed simultaneously. I had to check something for a moment.
You got to look out for that. That can be dangerous.
Exactly. You were making a point earlier, and I thought you were going to pop right on it, and then you shifted. It said Biden had basically already agreed to not pardon his son because the outcome is already known. And I don't think Biden has any clue. I think Nancy Pelosi's in a tower in Transylvania somewhere leading the show. But even if he's found guilty, he's still going to find a way to walk so that they can say, hey, look, it is a fair justice system. Even the president's son was found guilty, but his sentence is going to be community service or doing something, and he's going to slide. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be able to use that, and Biden will be able to keep his promise. And this is actually a second part. We've been, for the past several years, just watching the Democrats abuse the law, ignore the law, kangaroo courts. Now, I enjoy Comer and Jordan and Cotton on TV taking Democrats to task, but nothing ever happens. We show up to gunfights with a fly swatter. We need to start showing the Democrats that we're willing to do what they are doing. If we don't, they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. You need to match their ferocity in kind and their ruthlessness, which, they do it with a smiley face, of course, and the news media helps to polish the turd that is the Democrat Party. And my best girl and I last night were talking about Hunter Biden being found guilty of something, but then just getting a slap on the wrist so they can say, see, there's equal justice under law, when we know perfectly well that there isn't. But I do. Wait till you hear what Alan Dershowitz had to say about it. He summed it up pretty beautifully, I got to say. And I've been saying the same thing. They need to be revealed by finding him not guilty, and it'd be the best thing for Trump, too.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Yes. David Muir of ABC Fake News with the barely breathing president of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden, who is lying that he'll accept the verdict no matter what in his son's court case in Wilmington, Delaware, and that he would not pardon him. Don't believe any of that. However, Matthew, I think, is probably on to them. They're going to try to find a Solomon-like way out of this, where poor Hunter, who has a drug problem, don't you know? And so many families have drug problems. All liberals have the same talking points. They plug that RJ11 jack into the side of their neck when they sleep at night, and the data is downloaded, and they all parrot the same phrases and terms. They all use the same words in the media, outside of the media. I ran into a guy last night at an establishment. I went and sat at a bar, and I had one beer and one appetizer. My best girl was working, and I was waiting for her to come home so we could dine together at home. But I did. I was hungry, and so I went to have an appetizer and one beer, and a lefty next to me just couldn't shut up. And he's going on and on about all this crazy stuff. And I'm not looking for a political argument with some nitwit, in a restaurant in the city of Washington. But I listened to him, and I engaged him a little bit. And he actually made these insane claims, and he's really worried about the right in Alabama and North Dakota and South Dakota, and in Europe, too, because of the elections in Europe. And he said he was just back from Paris, and because, they love to go to Paris. And that's where the Nazis marched in the shade and under the Arc de Triomphe and all that stuff. Yeah, and he claimed that he was doing research in Germany in the old days when the Soviet Union was alive. And he would go through Checkpoint Charlie to go into Eastern Europe. And he was grabbed by the Stasi, he said, and they waterboarded him. The East German secret police, Vladimir Putin was a part of the Stasi for a period of time. And they waterboarded him, he said. And he blamed George W. Bush for that. And now the Soviet Union didn't exist and the Stasi didn't exist by the time George W. Bush became president. Years later with terrorists, they did adopt the Perrier Spritz for just a few of the savages back then. But this guy's telling me that he was waterboarded and it somehow was George W. Bush's fault by the communists in East Germany. And somehow, long before George W. was president, somehow it was still George W. Bush's fault because they're all mentally ill. They're all mentally ill. Speaking of mentally ill, tomorrow is the anniversary of the massacre at the Pulse nightclub, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, by an Islamist named Omar Mir Sadiki Mateen. Omar Mateen was the mass murderer, and he murdered so many people. It was the second largest single gunman mass shooting in the history of the United States of America. And he went to this Pulse nightclub because it was a gay nightclub. It was a gay nightclub. And he murdered 49 people and wounded 53 others. 49 and 53. More than 100 people he shot, murdering 49 and wounding 53. And fortunately, he died during the melee, but he was a Muslim man, an Islamist, who was anti-gay, I think it would be fair to say. And he went to the Pulse nightclub and perpetrated this massacre on June 12th of 2016. Today is June 11th, of course, which means, according to my watch, that tomorrow will be June 12th, the anniversary. But Omar Mir Sadiki Mateen, he just went away. He was swept under the rug. That whole thing was swept under the rug because that does not conform with the Democrat Party's narrative, right? January 6th was really bad, where Lieutenant Byrd shot and killed Ashley Babbitt while unarmed for the alleged crime of trespassing, which has a death penalty now if you're a Democrat. It's an amazing thing. So we got that. But my friend in Florida lives in Florida along the Space Coast, and he reminded me this morning, he said, tomorrow is actually the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre, and it's a truly horrible thing and a big anniversary. It's true. News media will ignore it because it's Omar Mir Sadiki Mateen, and he's an Islamist, and that was actual, you might call that homophobia. Maybe not an irrational fear, just a hatred of, but never mind that. So the Pulse nightclub anniversary tomorrow. Why would that be a thing? The news media will ignore it. It does not conform with the Democrat Party's stuff. Am I right? Yes, I am. All right, so many stories to get to. So many wild stories to get to. And before we go on to, we've got a bunch of audio to share with you. Of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and we've got, she's just out of her mind, Joe Biden from yesterday. He had the Juneteenth celebration at the White House yesterday, and they had this transgender black man with a beard dressed in a sparkly, spangly, full-length gown and in high heels, which I think clashed with his beard, his graying beard, I think. But that could, what do I know? I'm not really much of a fashion maven, I will concede. But the Juneteenth, which is now a federal national holiday because of something, and it's because it was the last day, that's the anniversary of the last day that the Democrats had their slaves taken away from them. And that literally is what Juneteenth is the anniversary of when the last people in America, last black people in America were told, no, the Democrats lost. They lost the Civil War. Jefferson Davis lost the Civil War. I'm telling you. Also, Joe Biden yesterday at the Juneteenth event, there was a lot of dancing going on. And Joe Biden was just frozen with his mouth hanging open. And it looked like he was being held at gunpoint or something. Amazing. The New York Post has the story. The Washington Post does not. Republicans mock Biden after he appears to freeze for nearly 1 minute at White House event. Lights on, but no one's home. And Victor Nava at the New York Post with the story. Republicans mocked President Trump on Monday, President Biden on Monday after he remained virtually motionless for nearly a minute during a lively Juneteenth musical performance at the White House. The 81-year-old president's gaze was fixed on the stage as gospel singer Kirk Franklin performed the song Love Theory. Love Theory. Got like love power. In front of the Commander-in-Chief, Vice President Kamala Harris, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, and other dignitaries on the South Lawn, all of whom danced along as Biden stood still, including the man dressed like a woman, the bearded man with a full-length spangled, sparkly gown in red with white pumps. I think they call them pumps. They're high heels, the kind that women wear. But it's a bearded man, and he's standing. He's not just lost in the crowd somewhere. He was brought up to stand next to Doug Emhoff. Maybe they know each other. I don't know. So the lights are on, but no one's home. Trump campaign war room account posted on X in response to Biden's behavior at the Juneteenth celebration. Trump's campaign advisor, Stephen Chung, joked that it appeared as though the president were under the influence of marijuana at the event. Marijuana. He wrote, Biden, these edibles ain't beep. 15 minutes later, that's Chung tweeting, that's pretty funny, including a video clip of the president standing rigidly among the revelers. He's among the revelers there. Who said Biden got no rhythm, said Senator Mike Lee, the Republican of Utah, on social media. In a separate post, the senator fumed that while America was being invaded, Biden did whatever he's doing in this video. That is standing there and doing absolutely nothing. Biden was flanked by Harris and Philonise Floyd. Philonise Floyd, the brother of the late George Floyd, a career criminal and junkie who died of heart failure because of all the fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system, according to the coroner, who said that if he had been found at home in a Barcalounger, they would have just said it was another fatal drug overdose. So just amazing. But there's Philonise Floyd, and I'm sure he's a perfectly nice man. But he's standing there, the brother of the late George Floyd. And, then the police officer that arrested him following police procedure, putting the knee between the shoulder blades, told him while he's resisting arrest, big, strong junkie and career criminal. But never mind that. He's the hero of the story. George Floyd is amazing. And now his brother, Philonise, is Philonise with a PH, not with an F. And he's at the White House yesterday because Democrats are desperate. They're Klansmen, and they're Jim Crow, and they're Jefferson Davis, but never mind that. And the event was held ahead of next week's national holiday commemorating the end of slavery, when the last Democrat finally had this, you'll take my slaves when you pry them from my cold, dead hands. And that's what the Civil War was about. So Philonise Floyd wrapped his arm around Joe Biden and was able to rouse him because he could see Philonise Floyd. Don't know anything about him other than the fact that he's George Floyd's brother. But he looks perfectly normal, and he's standing there while Joe Biden is frozen. And finally, Philonise notices that this guy's a statue and everybody else is moving. So Philonise Floyd eventually wrapped his arm around Joe Biden, was able to rouse him. The two men exchanged a fist bump. And it looked like there was a counterfeit $20 bill being passed. I'm not sure. Pretty amazing stuff. But who the man dressed in the red spangled gown with the white high heels and the beard, they don't identify who that is. Pretty amazing stuff. It might be actor Billy Porter. Is that an actor named Billy Porter? Billy Porter dressed like a lady with high heels and the white high heel boots and the full-length gown. I think that might be who it is. An actor named Billy Porter who showed up dressed like a lady. If you're going to dress like a lady, you might want to shave your gray beard. Call me old-fashioned, but wow, you're a Democrat party. Yeah, Billy Porter. Billy Porter was at the White House, and he's dressed like a woman, and he's a bearded man. He's got white kind of boots with high heels, and they're not cowboy boots, and a full-length red spangly gown and a gray beard, because when you're a Democrat, all that is just fine. All right, let's grab another phone call, because actually, we've got a couple of audio clips from this event, don't we, at the Biden White House, where they've got George Floyd's brother, because that's important, and Black Lives Matter. Since George Floyd died of heart failure, I think about 35,000 African Americans have been murdered in the United States, number greater than we lost in the Korean War in about the same amount of time. But that's not really a thing. We were down at Black Lives Matter Plaza the other day because the communists were there, the Democrats, chanting on behalf of Hamas and stuff. So at the White House with Joe Biden and the Democrats and a transgender actor.
But let's be clear. They're all ghosts in new garments trying to take us back. Well, there are. Taking away your freedoms, making it harder for black people to vote. Or have your vote counted. Closing doors of opportunity. Attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's the black thing. And Juneteenth is next week, but he's going to be in Italy or something. So he didn't really care about that so much. But you got to keep in mind the Democrats, who the Democrats are. Let's go, because I just love this Michael Beschloss. Let's go to number 2, Michael Beschloss, Democrat presidential historian on MSNBC, the time of the midterm elections halfway through President Trump's presidency.
What was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future, whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. We're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system, and it could be a week away.
That's right, because that's the... And let's not forget, Joe Biden likes to spread fear among African Americans, and they never like to remind that they're the party of Jim Crow, the party of lynching, the party of standing in schoolhouse doors. That never comes up with, Democrat news media coverage. But remember when Joe Biden said this.
Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules.
Lie.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Ah, yes, the black audience. Well, they're the ones that took the chains off, but let's not go around telling the truth. And, of course, you remember Joe Biden when he was on with, Charlemagne the misspelled God. He misspells the word the in his name because illiteracy is fundamental to Democrat Party success.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Now that's the real Juneteenth celebration at the Biden White House, the Democrat White House, followed by the soft bigotry of low expectations. But honestly, all of that's about the soft bigotry of low expectations. Because, if you held people in high regard, you wouldn't talk down to people the way that Joe Biden does. And I don't think when I've got, these are my representatives of African Americans. I've got the brother of a career criminal junkie who died of heart failure while resisting arrest on video, and he became a celebrity because Democrats, And then a transgender black guy who I don't think represents the mainstream of African American masculinity. But the Democrats, they're anti-masculinity. Masculinity is toxic. Femininity is a relic of a bygone era. They're trying to emasculate the men while masculating the women. They want their women to compete as men, and they want their men to be neutered and emasculated because masculinity is toxic. And here's a black guy. He's dressed like a woman, with high heels and a long spangled gown, and the brother of a career criminal who died while resisting arrest of a fatal, effectively, drug overdose that caused cardiac failure. This is the Democrat Party's vision of African Americans today. All right, a great deal of great audio to share with you, which we're going to begin doing right after the top of the hour. We've got the border where it's still open and flowing across, and the propagandists from the Washington Post, David Ignatius, who's a tool of the intelligence community, and on MSDNC and Morning Joke with the most fantastical lies that you'll hear anyone tell all day today. That's tough right there. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael, and we've got more and more and more. AOC and Nancy Pelosi, lots of crazy Democrat stuff. Alan Dershowitz. Let's go to Jeff, calling from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Jeffrey, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You bet.
I was having a thought as far as the LGBTQ push and the DEI and all that. I'm thinking the left wants to put all these folks on a list because you check a box saying, hey, I want a job, DEI, check your box. Now they have a list, so once they no longer are useful to the left, they can round them all up, just like the Nazis did.
Well, I got to tell you, Jeff, I've been talking about the left putting together these lists since Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street was an organizing phase for the left in the United States and finding people that would volunteer to sleep in pup tents in parks for months on end and in their own filth. And remember, they set up the rape tents because of all the sexual assaults and all that stuff. But they were signing everybody up for their Facebook pages and their Twitter accounts. And they did it by race and by sexual orientation and by, they slice and dice everyone into all these categories. And they do have these lists. They put together monster lists.